Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about phases of the moon, and in particular when the moon rises in particular phases. So I already have drawn for us here on the board a little bit of a look. The sun's up here, sunlight coming in this direction. If we draw a line through the middle of the earth this way, it's daytime over here, it's nighttime over here. We'll neglect the tilt of the earth for a little bit right now and just call this noon, this midnight, as far away from the sun as you can get. And that's pointed directly toward the sun. Then we're going to call this 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. over here. So in this diagram, the Earth's rotating this way. You're going from noon towards 6 p.m. to midnight to 6 a.m. back to noon. So this is all good. So then we're going to call this sunrise and sunset. You know, that works close to the equinoxes. Doesn't work so well near the solstices, where the sunrise and sunset's a very different time if you're not close to the equator there. So anyway, this is what we've got going on. And we want to look at the phases of the moon and when the moon is visible to us. So let's actually start with a full moon back here. So the moon is full out here. Because the tilt of the moon's orbital plane is not right in line with the orbital plane of the Earth around the sun, we don't get an eclipse every month when the moon's over here. It's often not right in line. It would be out of here or into the board as we see it. And it's a full moon because this is the illuminated half of the moon right there. And we see the entire illuminated half of the moon. The so-called dark side of the moon is over here, and we do not see that side because that side is facing away from the Earth. And so when we look at it, it looks completely fulled out. That's the circle. That's the circle that you get from cutting the moon in half this direction with the sunlight falling fully on that half. Now, we can see that the moon is directly overhead at midnight. There's directly overhead. If we're standing here at midnight, we see the moon directly overhead in the sky at midnight. That means it must have risen at 6 a.m. over here and set 6 p.m. My goodness, sorry about that, and set at 6 a.m. So the full moon is up all night. The full moon rises at 6 p.m., sets at 6 a.m., and is in the sky all night long. And so this is, you can see, for people at 6 p.m., the moon is just starting to clear the lip of the Earth if you look at it this direction. And so as we rotate, it's going to get higher and higher in the sky, and the moon is rising into the sky, this full moon. Okay, so this is full down here. Up this direction is going to be the new moon. And so if this is the new moon, the illuminated half of the moon is over here. That's the half that sees the sunlight. This half doesn't see the sunlight. It's nighttime on this half of the moon. And so this half does not see this half sees the sunlight, but we do not see it. It's facing directly away from us. So we can't see the illuminated side of the moon at all when it's new. And so that's the new moon that we see. There's no moon in the sky. The new moon is directly overhead at noon, and it's just rising at 6 a.m. It's, as we're rotating here, imagine you're here and the Earth's rotating into view. Can't see the moon, can't see the moon, can't see the moon. Boom! Moon rotates into view as the Earth rotates. Boom, 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 boom. Moon sets. So the moon sets at 6 p.m. and rises at 6 a.m. if it's in the new phase. It's up during the day. We don't see it at all. Over here, as we're going from new to full, the moon that's out in here is going to be the first quarter moon. And the first quarter moon has this side illuminated. That's the side that's facing the sun. But this is the side that we see. We see half of the illuminated half. So this is a half moon. Only in astronomy can a quarter moon be a half moon. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So we have a first quarter moon is a half moon in the sky, and what we see is half of the disk illuminated. Okay? Over this is going to be the third quarter moon, and the third quarter moon is going to have this half illuminated, and that's the half that we see of the illuminated half. We see the opposite half that we saw in the first quarter moon. Okay, first quarter moon directly overhead at 6 p.m. Third quarter moon directly overhead at 6 a.m. So that means the first quarter moon rose at noon. Again, we're rotating, 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 pops into view when it's noon. Rotating, 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 pops out of view at midnight. Over here we can't see it. The Earth's between us and the moon. So the first quarter moon is visible from noon to midnight. Of course, at noon it may be too bright. There may be too much sunlight to be able to see it. So at some point you'll be able to see the moon as it gets around towards sunset over here. Third quarter moon is visible from midnight to noon, directly overhead at 6 a.m. Again, Earth rotating around, pops into view as we get to midnight right there, climbs above the horizon, rises, we say. So when it pops above the horizon, climbs above the horizon, we say that object has risen into the sky, and we call that rising. Okay, so far so good. New moon, directly overhead at noon. First quarter moon, directly overhead at 6 p.m. Full moon, directly overhead at midnight. Third quarter moon, directly overhead at 6 a.m. As we're going from new toward full, we say the moon is waxing. And as we're going from full toward new, we say the moon is waning, getting less full. Between new and first quarter, we call that a crescent moon, less than half full. And over here, it's gibbous. So we have a gibbous, waxing gibbous, waxing crescent, waning crescent, and waning gibbous over here. So we can see the phases of the moon as they walk around. So over here, when we have a waxing crescent moon, if we're halfway between new moon and full quarter right there, it's going to be directly overhead at 3 p.m., halfway between noon and 6 p.m. If it's directly overhead at 3 p.m., that means it's going to set down here at 9 p.m., and it would have risen at 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is when it's in the sky. Okay? So when the moon, that means we can see it late afternoon. So if you go out in the afternoon and you see the moon in the afternoon sky, that means it is a waxing moon. The opposite is true going the other direction. So over here, for example, let's look right here. We've got a waning gibbous moon. So a waning gibbous moon is over here. And suppose it's halfway between full and third quarter. That means it's going to be directly overhead at 3 a.m. And if it's directly overhead at 3 a.m., it's going to set at 9 a.m. and it will rise, pop into view as the Earth rotates around at 9 p.m. So it's up in the sky a little bit after sunrise. And so if you see the moon in the morning after sunrise, in the early morning hours, that means it's a waning moon. Okay? You can do the same thing for these pieces over here, but hopefully you get the idea. Walk through this. Picture this Earth rotating around and you standing on the Earth. You can't see the part of the sky that's below the Earth. We'll just keep emphasizing that. You can't see the part of the sky that's below the Earth. You see the half of the sky that's above you. And that's where you can see when the moon in various phases rises and when the moon in various phases sets. There's a diagram in your book to work through this, and we'll spend time in class working through examples of this and making sure we can see when the moon is in various phases, when we would see it in the sky. That's what we got right now. Phases of the moon. We can see the illuminated portion of the moon. We can see different fractions of the illuminated portion of the moon. We see more and more and more of the illuminated half of the moon. And then we see less and less and less of the illuminated half of the moon. Waxing, waning, crescent, gibbous. Okay? So work through that, draw yourself diagrams, and we will talk about it in class. That's our astronomy class at Luther College. That's our discussion of the phases of the moon and when they're visible in the night sky. Take care, everybody.